Hello, welcome back to All For United WFC. Finally, we're getting some signing announcements. JC is over the line. Manchester United confirmed what a signing this is. So I've got somebody with it. Julia has joined to talk us all about, really hype up us United fans and tell us how good she is. And obviously Carolyn as well, linked as well. Turning to Brazil FC at rear with Ivana Fuso as well. So we've got quite a few South Americans at United now. So, but firstly, thanks for coming on. I'm not going to waste any more time. I just kind of asked you your thoughts on this signing. Did you ever think it was going to happen? Were you surprised? What are your kind of thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I thought Geyse was kind of going to, she was already mentioned that she has already mentioned her discomfort at Barcelona, and she was benched a lot. She was fighting for positions with Sato Shoala, who is an icon for the Barca fans and for the Barca side. So it was kind of a tough position to be in, and at such a young age, she was fighting for time to play, fighting for minutes every single game. And for her, this move to United is such a great deal because she'll get minutes, she'll get a really challenging league and a really interesting position because United are such a rising side in the WSL that I really think she'll have enough exposition and enough minutes and enough structure to grow as the player we think she can be.
Obviously, there's so much we can cover here. I guess the first kind of question, I'll probably have some follow-up ones off the back of this. Obviously, for people who maybe haven't watched her or things like that, where would you kind of say her best position is? Can she play a multi? Obviously, we know she's a forward, but where would you say her kind of best position is coming into this United side?
Yeah, really like her as a forward. Actually, in the last World Cup, she played really interestingly in a position where she was attacking and pushing the lines forward as much as she could and challenging in 1v1 duels during the games in the World Cup that Brazil was, kicked out in the group stage, but still she was one of my best surprises in the sense of the position she played in wasn't something that we've seen in Brazil before. And she's such a strong player and she uses her body really well. She uses her body to kind of challenge defenders and to hold on to the ball as much as she can. So I love her doing that. But at the same time, she still needs to improve a lot in decision making. I think that's one of her main issues at the moment. When she has to pass the ball and she shoots instead, or she has to shoot and she passes the ball instead, that's something that it's been quite challenging watching her play like that. But she's such a young player that, with the right team, with the right management, she will be able to learn from that and improve. And she's also really confident in herself, in her football. She's a really shy player. Like once you guys get to see her giving interviews, she's really shy, she's really quiet, but amongst her peers, amongst her teammates, she'll flourish. And I think her confidence is a really strong suit for her.
So, do you kind of expect her to play down the middle? Would you expect her off the right hand side, obviously, or do you think she's going to be cover on the left? Because I don't think she's coming in to start over Golden on the left, so we're probably not going to see her out there. The right hand side for United hasn't really been nailed down. We've seen Garcia, we've seen Paris, Martha Thomas, we've seen a few players play out there. Do you think we're going to see her maybe down the middle, off the right? Where would you kind of put her in this United side?
Yeah, and at United, I think she will be a good reference in the middle, especially if you guys actually get Caroline and she'll be running from the side. So that will be a good matchup because they already know each other. They already played with each other with the national team. So I really think that it will be an interesting matchup in the attack. But I think that the way she's been playing, especially in the World Cup, in the middle, like receiving the ball and holding on to the ball and doing kind of like a pivot thing, it would be really interesting to see. And I think that's something that United will need in this WSL season.
Certainly after we've lost obviously Alessia Russo earlier in the window, and the forward line is not as strong, I guess, going into the Champions League as some other sides, especially in the qualifying rounds that we could come up against. Obviously, you mentioned Carolyn there. At the time of recording this, Carolyn is not official. It might be by the time this goes out. Who knows? We don't know with United which deals are going to get announced first and so on. But what do you think of that? You mentioned obviously there the kind of how important that could be, that link between the two of them. Obviously, they know each other from the national side. Do you think? Obviously, United probably didn't go into this thinking let's sign them as a pair. I think we would have signed one or the other anyway. But how important do you think that link up could be? The fact that she's come into a new side and she's also got, because does she speak English? I'm not sure if she does, but she will have players with Carolyn, with Fuso that speaks the language as well, to help with that barrier coming to a new side.
Yeah, that's a huge barrier. Once I interviewed Rafaeli, who was playing for Arsenal, and she told me that, the main holdup for Brazilian players in the WSL was the language, because in the United States, you can still find a lot of Brazilians. There are Brazilians everywhere. In England, not so much. So it's quite interesting to see her move to, and especially at United, it's not a side, of course, you've had Ivana, so who speaks Portuguese. But it's not necessarily a side that Brazilians speak a lot, and Brazilian women. And to see her going there, it's a challenge for her. And I don't think she's ever had such a challenge in her career because, playing in Brazil, of course, it's her home, it's her comfort zone. She's good, so people know her. Going to Spain, Spanish is not so different than Portuguese, and she'll be able to be comfortable there. In England, I feel like she'll need to tone down a bit. Like she's really cocky sometimes, and she'll need to tone that down a bit because she'll be yeah, I don't know if you can say that, but yeah. So she'll need to tone that down a bit to be able to connect with the players, to be able to be in a team, to be a team player. And that's something that I think she'll learn a lot from that experience. And also learning a new language is always an improvement in your personal life, in your career. So I think that would be great for her. And if Caroline comes along, Generally, also she hasn't been for long in the United States anyway, so I don't think her English is like 100%. But I think it will be good for both of them, and also for Brazilian football, for the Brazilian national team in general, because um, if every single player is going to the NWSL, is going to the United States, they won't have different challenges, different kinds of team to face, and that's always a plus for the national team to have people who know different leagues, different styles, different players, to learn from all these different types of football.
Certainly the physicality of the WSL, I think, will take a couple of them by by surprise. Not meant necessarily just these two. I think a couple of other players that are coming from other nations as well, I think, might adapt to that one. Back to her kind of on the pitch, her kind of playing ability. What would you kind of say her standout attributes? You mentioned earlier, obviously, she needs to sharpen up on maybe a decision making. You mentioned, obviously, she's best running at players and so on like that. And breaking through the lines. What would you say her kind of, for people who maybe haven't seen her at Barcelona or with Brazil, her kind of standout attributes?
Her speed, absolutely. She's such a fast player, and even though Brazilian championships are not necessarily like as physically demanding as European championships, especially the WSL, or even the NWSL, and like she has been benched in Barcelona for so long that it would be expected of her to not have the rhythm, to not have the speed to be in the pitch for 90 minutes, but she can play 90 minutes and she can be really strong in that sense. And I really think that her best suit in this movie specifically is the fact that she's probably really eager to play and to learn and to adapt to a different football because at Barcelona, when you move to Barcelona, you think it's the dream, it's the best team in the world, but you don't think you're going to be in the bench for like half of every single game, more than half of every single game. And, for her to shine the way that she can shine, and I believe she can shine like that, um, she needs to be on a side that will give her a little bit more confidence, but at the same time, a lot to learn, so that she'll be able to, open up a little bit more, not just think, I know everything, I can do everything, and go for it. I think she'll need to tone down that a bit and just try to learn more about the English football, about what she wants to do with her career, with her life. Why is she moving to England? Is she moving to England to, just to play and get her money or something, or does she really want to play and be the best in the world? And I interviewed her right before the World Cup, and she told me she wanted to be the best in the world, and she wanted to be the first player to win the Women's World Cup and the Champions League in the same season. That didn't happen, unfortunately. But she has big dreams. She has huge dreams, and I really think this move is a really interesting one for her.
It's certainly going to be interesting, as you said there, obviously with the Brazil side, a little bit of well, that's an understatement, a disappointing World Cup, obviously campaign, but there's a lot of talent in that squad, and I think a lot of United fans were looking obviously at those two with the rumours that were going around at the time, and
Yeah.
were certainly impressed with that one. Um, you mentioned obviously time to adapt. A couple of kind of ones to end this one off. Do you think she's going to need time to adapt to WSL? Because I think a lot of United fans are fully expecting her to come in and start right from the off. Obviously, we've got Villa away and an Arsenal at home as our first two games. That's not an easy start, particularly with some of the signings that
Yeah.
Aston Villa and Arsenal have made. Do you think United fans maybe are going to have to be patient, or do you think she's that good that when she comes into the side from the off, she's going to hit the ground running in the WSL?
I think she's hungry. I think she's hungry for minutes. She wasn't starting in every game in the national team as well. So I really think that she's so confident. I really think she just wants to play football and to show her worth. I really think she'll hit the ground running. Maybe not in the same rhythm as everyone else. She's been playing in different styles, in different leagues. But I think she'll just if she gets out of the plane and gets onto the beach like 5 minutes after, I think she'll love it. And I just think she needs to get back out there and play some football. And then she'll learn to adapt and she'll learn the style and she'll get more used to speaking English, to learning the instructions or everything else. But like I really think she just needs the minutes to feel to play the way she wants to play because she hasn't been able to show her football like consistently in the past year, in the past season. So I really think that for United, it would be good to put her to start as soon as she can, as soon as she feels a bit more comfortable with the team, as soon as she feels like she can do it because she's hungry. She just wants to play, honestly.
I think that's the beauty with this signing that, as you said, because she hasn't played much, she's coming in. Not obviously she's going to have expectation put on her right from the off, but I feel like because she hasn't played much, she's coming in, as you said, with that hunger to prove a point. Really, as you said, to force her way into a consistent starting spot with Brazil, and almost like saying to Barcelona, "Well, look who you've just got rid of." My last kind of question before a little quick fire one at the end. In terms of how highly rated she is from a Brazilian point of view, obviously we spoke to some Barcelona fans and got their kind of thoughts on this. They're a little bit surprised that they've let her go, obviously after only a year. But obviously with the quality that Barcelona have, it's not too much of a surprise to see the kind of players that leave that side. But from a Brazilian point of view, how highly rated is she kind of in and amongst that squad?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I was expecting more of her, in the sense of her starting games in this World Cup. We didn't see that in every game. She was fighting for a position with Bia Zanerato, who plays in Brazil, who is a more experienced player. She went to her third World Cup, but for Jay-Z, I was kind of expecting that she would be starting games and she would undoubtedly be one of the Brazil women's national team starters, and that didn't happen. But at the same time, I understand that point of view. Like she wasn't starting in Barcelona. There's, why would you put her as an absolute starter in the national team? And also like she's such a young player. Sometimes you need the experience. Sometimes you need someone who will. uh, who you expect will be the person to stop the ball and hold off a little bit and think about it a little bit before making decisions. And that's, I think, Jay's main issue at the moment. But at the same time, I feel like she compensates for that, maybe overcompensates sometimes with so much, she just wants to play. She just wants to be there. She wants to get the ball. She wants to run, and she doesn't like to lose possession at all. That's kind of like her thing. She goes back and she tries to get it back. And I think that's one of the main things that why Pearson Hogg always, called her up, always had her in the national team because she has this fire that, she always wants to be the best in the pitch. And sometimes that plays against her, but with the right management, with the right guidance, and with the right teammates, I feel like she can do really, really well.
So you've got me thinking she's going to be a Ballon d'Or winner now in a couple of years. United, United win the WSL and then push on next season. There we go. She's going to be a big part of that.
You got really, really close. Like, so, I think, for United, the attack, especially after losing Russo, is one of your main issues, and I really think that she's a good add-on to that team, even though she doesn't start right away, even though maybe you have some other names that you sign after her, and she's always a good person to be in your team rather than playing against her.
Indeed. So looking forward to that one. A kind of quick fire one to wrap this one up there. If you could rate this sign out of 10, where would you put it from a fan's point of view, from a United point of view? Where would you put this signing out of 10?
As a United fan,
Either or. You can either do it as a neutral or a United fan, however you want
yeah.
to.
As a Brazilian neutral, as someone who has followed Daisy, I think I would put it at 7 because she's still really young. I think she still has a lot to learn, of course, and with Brazil's performance in the World Cup, that's not necessarily going for her. It's more of against her and against like basically every Brazilian player. But for United fans specifically, I would put it at a 9. I think she's such an interesting name to bring, and especially coming from Barcelona, she just won a Champions League. She's just one of the big names at the moment, one of the young big names at the moment. So for United fans, that's really saying something, especially considering that in the WSL you have sides like Chelsea winning 4 times in the WSL, you have Arsenal playing for the title every single year. United are just getting there. So it's nice to see a young player that can learn so much there and at the same time can be one of those people that, will get the ball and will fight for it as hard as she can. I really think that that's a good sign. It's a really good potential for United fans. I think they should get excited, but at the same time, like as a Brazilian fan and seeing how Brazil went in the World Cup, it's kind of like touch and go a little bit. But I really like her. She's such a good player. She can be a great player one day.
No, I'd love to hear that. Certainly, United fans are excited for this one. Julia, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. At the time of recording this, people won't know it's really late where you are. Obviously, because you're down in Australia enjoying the World Cup. So I really appreciate you coming on. If people want to follow you on obviously your Twitter and things like that, if people want to do that, where can people find you?
Yes, it's just July, like the month underline underscore B for Belas, T for Trindade. That's my like handle for everything.
Make sure you go and check her out. It's been absolutely fantastic having you on. I'll put it in the description anyway, so it's easier to find. Make sure you're liking the video, subscribing, all of that jazz. And we shall see you guys in the next one.